In order to best keep your bonk strong, it's very useful to have a loose framework of a weapons progression guide that you can follow along, helping to keep you on track, giving you an idea of where you can go from upgrade to upgrade. This by no means needs to be fully rigid, and you can divert over to other weapons along the way. This is something I get asked all the time, so I thought what better way to address this than giving you one simple to follow weapons progression guide. I'm lighted up Dan. I love to produce content that helps to reduce the overwhelm of the Monster Hunter World game. If you haven't caught any of my event roundup videos or weapon overviews, there's something there for everyone. Very quickly, I want to thank you for really turning up and getting us to around 80% of unsubscribed viewers on the channel. With the majority of you returning, if you enjoy the videos, do subscribe. Let's get that down to 50%. And with that said, let's get to it. Let's say you've started off Iceborne with a maxed out defender's weapon, or alternatively, you've made the initial ore tree weapon that you can craft once you're into Iceborne. Your first stop is going to be the 50 Shades of White event, an MR7 event pitting you up against a Barioth in the arena. Given that it's MR7, you're going to be able to do this very early into your Iceborne journey, making it a perfect starting point with your weapons progression. Barioth is a very dangerous, hard-hitting, quick-moving monster, and definitely presents itself as a wall to newer players to Iceborne. Some quick tips that are really going to help you out with this fight is if you can come in with 20 ice resistance or more, this will give you some damage mitigation against a variety of its attacks, but most importantly, it will give you ice blight immunity. This can be very dangerous with eating up your stamina and preventing you from dodging out of the way of fatal blows. By breaking one or both of its front arms, Barioth will no longer be able to leap about the arena really fast, chaining successive leaping attacks and giving you absolutely no breathing space. Once one or more are broken, instead it will trip immediately after doing a leap, giving you large damage windows you can capitalize on, and of course some much needed breathing room. You can get multiple head breaks on the monster, which you can visibly see with its two saber teeth. If one's broken, you've got one break. If both are broken, you've got them both. This is very useful because it reduces the efficacy of its ice attacks. Part breaks by themselves are just very useful opportunities for additional damage windows. They tend to topple the monster or at least make it flinch. Once you're done turning your pants 50 shades of brown, you'll be rewarded with a fest ticket or two and a bunch of other materials. Head over to the smithy and you can craft yourself any of the 14 weapons as a Guild Palace weapon. The other materials can and will drop from this single quest alone, meaning this is the only thing that you need to farm in order to create this direct craft weapon. Coming in at rarity 10 with a decent amount of raw, some white sharpness, a little bit of affinity, a level 3 gem slot, and a plus 30 defense bonus. If this is the only thing that you use until the next weapon that we look at, which is going to be at the end of the Iceborne campaign, you will be good. It's literally what I did. Whilst this is upgradable, I do not recommend it as you need to do some very difficult arena challenges, and it's just not worth the time or the effort. Next up is an MR24 event, The Last White Knight, pitting you up against a tempered Frostfang Barioth. MR24 content is available to you after you've completed the Iceborne campaign, so if there's anything else you wanted to use after the Guild Palace weapon in between then and now, by all means do so. I support that, I encourage it, but you will be good, you will be fine with your Guild Palace weapon. Start off at Central Camp 7 as the monster will be just around the corner from there. Tempered Frostfang Barioth is no joke, very dangerous, attacking in quick succession like the regular Barioth. Add to it that it's the Frostfang variant, so it's got a lot more kind of icy breath attacks, and that it's tempered as well, so HP is increased, damage is increased. It's going to be tricky. The same advice as the 50 Shades of White Barioth goes for this one over here too. 20 ice elemental resistance or more is going to be useful for some damage mitigation, but more importantly for some innate ice blight immunity. Sure, you can take Nullberries, you can take a cleanser booster, that works as well, but straight up immunity to it either through 3 blight resistance or 20 or more ice resistance is just going to be really useful. You don't need to think about it. Break the front arms so it trips up when it's leaping around, and get multiple head breaks to reduce the damage, the efficacy of the ice attacks. Especially useful for Frostfang Barioth here, as the duration you'll be frozen for when you step into the ice attacks themselves will be drastically reduced. After you're done culling the overzealous Discord admin, you'll be rewarded with a Frostfang ticket or Ore 2, and a bunch of other materials as well. You should note that for these events that give you tickets, you're always rewarded one guaranteed, and more are up for grabs on a dice roll. If you use a lucky voucher before coming out, chances are you may walk away with a bunch of them. Something to consider. Head to the smithy and you can craft any of the 14 weapons once more as a Frostfang Barith weapon. Direct craft and all the materials are gained from that one standalone event once more. These things are absolutely incredible. Rarity 11 with solid raw, purple sharpness, some affinity, and a big chunk of ice elemental. Just an all-round excellent choice. Not only that, but looking ahead, these are fantastic for the Alatreon fight as well, and will be a big jump in raw in damage from your Guild Palace weapons. Again, if you wanted to go through your crafting tree and make something in between the Guild Palace and this one here, that is absolutely fine. I would encourage you to explore, but it's not essential, you don't need to, and this will be a welcome upgrade. Okay, time to separate the Chancers from the Meowsters. Up next is another MR24 event monkey business, pitting you up against the Furious Rajang in Hoarfrost Reach. Strap yourself in because this is likely to be a jump above some of the other stuff that you've done until now. You're in for a bit of a rough ride. Attacking in very quick succession with seemingly very few gaps, hitting you very hard and very fast, and having some lightning elemental damage as well. I would highly recommend doing this in a group until you're more familiar with the fight and the monster, as you're probably going to struggle. 20 lightning resistance will give you Thunder Blight immunity, but given that Thunder Blight only increases your propensity to be stunned, if you have 3 stun resist, this is absolutely no problem. You can take Thunder Blight, it's not going to do anything to you. I highly recommend that you bring 1 level of Tremor resist. I used to think you needed 3, given how hard Furious Rajang slams the ground, but apparently you only need the 1, and that gives you full Tremor immunity to all of Furious Rajang's Tremor attacks. Definitely make room for 1 Tremor resist. It may seem like there's no openings that you can take advantage of, but after a little bit of practice, or maybe just some observation, you will come to learn that there are a bunch that can be punished for some quick hit and run attacks. When it does the Kamehameha mouth beam, you can punish that and get some attacks off on the head. When it does the lightning blitz slam on the ground and 5 streaks of lightning bolts come out, that's also another punish opportunity up against the head. When it jumps up into the air and spews a bunch of lightning balls out forward, you can roll forward into that towards the Furious Rajang, avoiding the attack and allowing you to capitalize on that window as well. Other than that, tenderizing its lower half will allow you to get some damage out, particularly useful when it's super enraged and its arms are bulging red, causing your attacks to bounce off them and barely doing any damage at all. Just be very cautious of when you do Clutch Claw on, as the monster has an inbuilt anti-Clutch Claw mechanic. Doing so outside of the openings where it's stuck in an animation for an attack, or it's tired or claggered or what have you, will result in you being Hulk smashed Loki style. And let me tell you, it's not a good time. As mentioned, I highly recommend you do this in a group, and it would be really useful if 1 or more of you are able to create powerful slinger ammo. This will allow you to interrupt any of the grabs with a quick sling, very likely saving your teammate from carting. The monster is capturable, so if you're not confident with slaying it, by all means utilize your trap tools. Just make sure that when you're placing them, you put them on the monster, as otherwise he'll walk up to them, pick them up and smash them. I think the shock traps don't work whilst it's hyper enraged and full of energy as well. I'm not too sure, that's just anecdotal from me, but as far as I know, they definitely can work, so you can use shock traps and pitfall traps. Feel free to let me know in the comments. Once you're done and you've gained sympathy for Frieza and his cause, you will be rewarded with a bunch of Furious Rajang parts. Don't worry about those tickets, they just make those golden macaques on your head. And pay no attention to my completion time, I got lost and couldn't find it at the beginning of the hunt for like 5 minutes solid. Head over to the smithy and you can craft any of the 14 weapons once again as a Furious Rajang weapon. I always refer to this as one of the breakthrough weapons, as it's a huge jump from anything that you will have had before, more than likely, giving you big raw, big purple sharpness, a good chunk of affinity, and some thunder elemental as well. These are fantastic weapons and I highly recommend them. Although you can fight Furious Rajang via some optionals, I recommend the event because it feels like there's a much higher chance to get a Rajang heart out of it. I've used lucky vouchers and come away with 4 hearts. Don't be afraid if you want to go from Guild Palace straight to this. You can if you want to. Up next is the MR24 optional quest Achy Breaky Heart, pitting you up against the raging Raging Brachydios in the Guiding Lands. This will be a set stage version of the Guiding Lands rather than your actual Guiding Lands, if that makes sense. If you haven't got this unlocked, you may need to do a few special assignments. Off the top of my head, it's a Stygian Zenoga one, then I think it's a Raging Brachy one, and this optional is just a repeatable version of the Raging Brachy one. This thing is an absolute menace. I highly recommend that you come in with 3 blast resistance. This is gonna do you a solid, giving you immunity to Blast Blight and Blast Scourge. You're gonna have enough on your plate as is. You do not need those incredibly dangerous status blight ailments to deal with as well. As it tops up the slime on its parts, you'll notice over time that they start glowing red. When this happens, the slime has become Flashpoint Slime, which not only deals more damage, it explodes almost instantly, making it incredibly dangerous. Thankfully, you can mitigate this by hitting the glowing red parts. While I don't particularly play ranged myself, I do believe any damage is absolutely fine. You can also fire puddle pods that you can pick up, knocking the Flashpoint Slime off those parts and then onto the ground. Be careful, this will then explode, so mind that whilst you get your topples, your wall bangs, etc. All the best practices come into play here and every other fight. Tenderize the parts when you've got an opportunity to. Go for the wall bangs when the monster's not enraged. Use ledges to do jump attacks to try to capitalize on mounts. Anything that you can do to help swing the fight in your favor and give you these additional damage windows to ensure your win. By breaking the parts that it attaches its slime to, like its fists, it will no longer be able to reapply slime to them. This can be very useful with managing the fight and helping you to reduce the damage output. When it's low on health, it'll go over to the final area and do this crazy animation, taking it into its final form. This is mostly the same as before, except it just throws out slime absolutely everywhere, and then at certain points, it will choose to explode all of it. This can absolutely devastate you and your squad, and funnily, it can also damage the monster too. So just be mindful that you're sniffing what you're stepping in, and don't be afraid to use that slope to your advantage depending on what weapon you're using. Once you're done getting Bukaki'd and Flashpoint Slime, you'll be rewarded with a bunch of Raging Brachydios parts. You're hoping for an Immortal Reactor because you're going to need one of them for every single weapon that you want to make. All 14 weapons coming in at rarity 12 with huge roar, some purple sharpness, a healthy dose of blast status element, with a level 4 and level 3 gem slot as well. Once more, another breakthrough weapon. This is absolutely phenomenal, and outside of fully upgraded siege weapons perhaps, you're looking at the second best weapon in the game more than likely. Absolutely make the time to get this weapon crafted. You're going to see huge returns from having it, and it's going to be very useful for the next one. The final showdown, the ultimate hunt, the MR24 event Fade to Black, pitting you up against Fatalis. The do's and don'ts, the ins and outs of this fight, of this hunt, would require a whole video in itself. There is no easy way. This is the hardest fight in the game. It's going to take a bit of practice, it's going to take some learning about the monster, and even then, even when you get good at it, it's still going to get you at times. Try to get head damage out when you can so you can get those horn breaks. Each horn break lowers the amount of damage it does with its flame attacks after a certain point. Getting both of them will guarantee you a Fatalis eye drop, which you will need for all of your weapon crafting. You're not always going to be able to get to the head. For the vast majority, you won't be able to. Aim your attacks out on its chest, that is one of its weak points. Still very dangerous, but also much more useful than attacking the back legs. Using smoke bombs to conceal yourselves when Fatalis is flying up to ground it back down, and just generally in between the fight as you're progressing through, can be super helpful with controlling the hunt. You will learn the various stages and the very dangerous attacks like the cone. Mind your positioning to not be behind the monster too often either, as the tail swipes are absolutely deadly. Utilize the roaming ballista when available to attack the chest directly, and the one-shot binders on the ballistas to pin the monster down, giving you a damage window out on the head. Listen, I ain't gonna lie, you are gonna get your shit rocked repeatedly for quite some time before getting this down. Playing in a trusted group is going to be very useful, particularly if they have experience with the fight. You can SOS flare, it will fill out. People are always looking to do fatty bum bum. However, it's a mixed bag whether you're gonna get some experienced good players or people who are kind of hoping to piggyback off it and get themselves an easy win, which I can understand. It's the hardest fight in the game, no hate to them. I just think maybe, you know, host it if you're in that situation. Oh, answer SOS flares. Best of luck, I believe in you, you got this. Once you're done dominating the a fatty hussy, you will be rewarded with your glorious Fatalis parts, including your Fatalis Evil Eye as a guaranteed if you got the double horn break, which is still guaranteed even if you fail. So get those horn breaks. Take yourself over to the smithy and you can craft your Fatalis weapon of choice out of any of the 14 weapons. These are all the ultimate weapons. They are absolutely phenomenal. Whilst the base Fatalis weapon is kind of nutty, it really comes into its own once you've actually upgraded it into its true form rarity 12 version. We are talking insane raw, purple sharpness, horrible negative affinity, but there has to be some sort of cost to it. Dragon elemental with high elder seal, very useful, and 2 level 4 gem slots. Yo, this thing's crazy! This is the end of the line, where you're headed to, and trust me, it is worth it. Do you have any additional suggestions of what weapons could fit into this loose weapons progression framework, particularly between the gap of the Guild Palace over to the Frostfang Barriath one? Let me know if this has given you some sort of guidance to help you plan things out. I would love to hear from you in the comments. As mentioned at the start, you folks have really turned up and got us to around 80% of unsubscribed viewers on the channel, with the majority of you returning. If you enjoy the videos, do subscribe. I'd love to get us to around 50% at some point. And if you're looking for an open, inclusive community to come and hunt with, come and join our Discord. It's open to all of you. We do hunts together there all the time. Every day there's a session, as well as over on the Twitch streams where I hunt with you folks live. I will leave all these links in the description for you. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the new world.